We're realizing we were never meant to live like this. On the clock, on a schedule. Our mindset is shifting. Our intuition is being activated. And just breathe. We're opening up to other ways. We are going within for our answers of rest and peace. We are finding joy. So open up and let's revolutionize your mindset.
All right, Alex, welcome to the show. I think it's pretty fair to go ahead and get right into it. And I think the split is happening.
The bifurcation is here.
The bifurcation is here. And this is something that we have talked about in the disclosure community, in the truther community, the awakening community. We've been talking about this for years and years, that we knew that we were coming to this age. It was going to happen. And I think it's here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember, this would have been maybe early-ish 2000s. Wayne Dyer put a movie out, The Shift. Did you ever see that?
No, I haven't.
And he was kind of talking about this. And I remember watching it and thinking, what does that even mean? Like this whole awakening that's happening, and this spiritual shift that we're going through, like it seems pretty normal to me as we're kind of, easing on into the 2000s. And it's pretty obvious at this point,
Yeah. I think
two
a lot, I
completely
think
different
some
realities.
people, yeah, I think some people have, they may have confused the awakening or the shift of just natural evolution, right? A culture always needs to be growing, expanding, but this is something very different,
Yeah, very different. Very
very
different.
different.
And the depth of like the narratives, and we've seen it through various chapters, Trump round one, COVID, the jab, I mean, you name it. But everything that's going on now, Doge is a great example of that, with this oversight and this auditing that's going on. You have two such different narratives. The ending of the war, another great example. Trump and Putin meeting in Saudi Arabia soon to kind of work towards peace talks. Like, I would think that would be pretty a universally accepted concept.
Yeah.
And everything that's happening on any narrative level, there's this bifurcation.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing, we have been fed the propaganda for decades that Russia is all about world power and control. And all throughout the narrative, I mean, it is out there in the news that Putin is advocating for peace. He
Yeah.
wants peace. He wants it to end, which is what everybody claims they want, especially one side of the bifurcation, they want peace and no more war. And they're advocating to continue the war. It's
I know. I know. It's the 80-20, right? This is the maestro at work where you take a common sense argument and 80% of people can get behind it, which then forces the other side to take the split because they're so black and white with their narrative that then they're always on the losing 20% side of the argument, you know?
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, it's interesting to see from a psychological point of view the like a debate tactic, of which strategy are we going to use to then make the opposite side be forced to hold the hot potato, to take a different narrative. And it's shaving off more people every day where they're peeling themselves away from clamoring on and holding on to this narrative that they've held on to for so long. And they're scared to look at anything different because of the confirmation bias. They're having to go deeper in terms of their core beliefs and really start to challenge some deeply held concepts. And that's a scary thing to do on any level of life. And there needs to be, enough of an emotional breakthrough for them to say, okay, everyone has their like ceiling. We've had our ceiling too until we woke up. And something happens, and then it's just like, okay, you know what? I can't do this anymore. This is enough. And then once that commitment happens, now there's an openness for them to start hearing, like for the first time. Those who have ears, let them hear. And so now they're hearing and they're like, huh, actually what you're saying makes a lot of sense, you know?
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
why I was so excited to have you come on the show, because you do have extensive knowledge within this psychological world. You have your doctor in psychology. You are seeing patients, clients all the time. And I wanted that perspective to understand how the psychology of the brain works, because we are seeing everyone's held beliefs being challenged. And I think one of the hardest works is when you have to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's really easy to challenge people around you, but when you have to actually challenge your held beliefs,
Yeah. Yeah.
what does that, I mean, I've already experienced it. I've already had someone go that I barely know, but they went unhinged in a private messenger, and it was all emotion, it was all fear-based and just name calling.
Yeah.
This very professional, successful person that has navigated this world for over 60 years could not hold a sentence together.
Right.
And how does that, we've heard the word cognitive dissonance for years. What can you break that down psychologically? Probably what is happening right now.
So no one is going to wake up until they're ready to wake up. If we look at it from like a spiritual point of view, it's like a contract. And so there's a timeline of everything unfolding that if they're meant to wake up, they will wake up when they are ready and not before then. And so that's always an important reminder for us that we can't red pill, we can't awaken, we can't push to have anyone like see it, like the meme of Clockwork Orange where they're like pulling open the eyes, and everything, that it can be so frustrating for people who are already kind of on that other side and see things and are like, these are two dots that connect, and the other person is just not there yet. And so that's our work to take that step back and be like, okay, there's a line that I have to draw. I can hold space as best as I can to hold compassion because they're just not there yet. They might never be there. And I have to find it within myself to make that okay. But what's going on with them, and it's true for all of us on any front, that we have different layers to our thinking. So only 5% of our thoughts are conscious. Think about that. 95% of our thinking is subconscious. And if we were raised, for example, with trusting the media implicitly, like I was even talking to a family member the other day, and I was saying they were really worried about this war and Europe's stance on trying to push war through Ukraine with Russia. And I'm like, yeah, but America and Trump are trying to work towards peace. Like, isn't that a good thing? Don't we want peace? And the person was just like, I don't know, we'll see. Like, this is Europe's stance. And I'm like, well, where are you getting this? Oh, I just watched the evening news. And I'm like, oh, it's so toxic for our health because um, how do we know we can fully trust them? I don't think we can fully trust anything. I think if we go full tilt 100%, then that's where we get into some dicey water. So on a psychological level, what happens is we have different layers to our thoughts. And at the core or the center of our thoughts are what are called core beliefs. And a if I can find my prop here, what I talk to clients is I say that our core beliefs are like a rubber band ball. That beliefs are nothing more than thoughts that we keep thinking over and over and over and over again. And the glue that keeps this rubber band ball together is emotion. And so we all have thousands, millions of these beliefs. And so the point is, the larger a belief has been invested in, the larger that rubber band ball is, which means it's going to take more counter emotion for us to be able to unwind and go through that belief and reverse it, challenge, question it, start to say, can I be open-minded enough to look at another person's stance? But this has been the long-standing trajectory for a long time. How much is debate really taught in high school anymore? How much is questioning anything from a logical point of view, you know, even taught as a skill in school? So we go through our life with these blinders on, with this emotion-fed narrative where emotion is king. And that's done on purpose because when we hear one side of things, look at how social media what's that word? Like focuses in terms of like the news feed. I'm trying to think of the word that they use, but the news feed is allocated to us based on an algorithm.
Yeah.
And so because of that, we're getting a confirmation of what we're tending to spend most of our time on
Yeah.
and what we see on the news, where we spend our investment in terms of our attention. We live in this silo, this bubble based on whatever it is that we're focusing on, which ironically, from like a spiritual perspective, is how the universe works, right? That we're going to be getting more of that same frequency of what we're putting out.
Mhm.
So, as a result of that, these people have had so many years of such a strong emotional message. And what are the two most common emotions that are pushed through media? Fear and anger, right?
Mhm.
Which are also low vibration, another subject. But the point is that those emotions are so central to us from like a survival instinct, that
Mhm.
fight or flight response, fear and anger. And so you have now people who are chanting these folk songs. Which side are you on? In terms of like Washington, D.C. with Doge and everything. And I don't know if you saw the interview with Trump and Elon the other day, but it's worth the watch. It's very interesting. And he's like, we're just doing what we promised to do. We're following the Constitution. There was just a lawyer or a big judge that came out and said that this whole push from the a Democratic argument that we need to stop Doge is not constitutionally sound, and so they're allowed to keep going because they're following the rules. And all they're doing is they're going through an auditing. So those who are the most opposed to this audit are eventually going to be the ones who are going to find out where the slush fund money is going back to. And that's why they're so scared. But what are they pushing until then? They're pushing this narrative of fear and anger, to the point that people are saying, which side are you on? And they're having like these fake dummies that they're, tramping through the streets, and it's getting pretty violent, you know.
Yeah.
And so when you confront someone on that topic, any topic, doesn't matter what the topic is, but we'll just take this for sake of argument because that's our discussion. So when you look at someone who's in a completely different space, who holds a completely different rubber band ball than you do, and you're trying to have a civilized conversation with them, it's like this because their rubber band balls are so different that when you try to talk to them, they have been instructed to discount that narrative, and there's an interpretation of what anything aside from what you're saying means, which is a whole nother rubber band ball about what it means to even hold a conversation or who that type of person is if they were to come from that narrative that's different than yours, which is superior, right? That then at that point, then they're going to be met with a block. So we're going to be met with a block. They're going to be met with a block from someone who's different than there. It's just human psychology. And that block is then where this confirmation bias comes in. And here's why. Our brain is wired for consistency.
Yeah.
That there is a part of the software formula in all of our brains is that if something is coming in that's consistent, we're a pattern making machine. That consistency then equals safety.
Mhm.
And at our core, we're wired for safety to live. That's how we've been able to survive for this long. So these two things are miswired from birth. So part of our awakening work and our self-growth is to uncross these two, to say just because something's predictable and what I'm used to seeing does not mean that it's good for me or safe or I need to continue. Like you see this, for example, with let's say a battered housewife who's with that partner, has been with him since high school, et cetera, et cetera. Then she starts going to counseling, starts saying like, maybe there's some abuse that's going on, maybe I need to leave. But then there's a lot of questioning because then they go back to this pattern of familiarity that I've been with this person for so long. Well, they've got good points to them. Well, I'm not ready to leave, et cetera, et cetera. That's the algorithm at work in terms of them saying, well, at the same time, I know on some level, cognitively, from like a logical point of view, here's the scale. From a logical point of view, I know that this person isn't healthy for me and I should probably leave. But emotionally, it's going to win most of the time because the emotion is what's feeding that rubber band ball.
Yeah.
And so when we're confronted with that, what do we see? An explosion because we're poking the ball when the person's not ready to start looking at that. This is
Yeah.
why reflection and self-awareness is fundamental. This is how it starts. We all have to do that work. We're all going to have blind spots. We all have a shadow side, as Carl Jung called it. But until we can look at our own blind spots and be able to question that, then we're going to be coming from this emotion-laden narrative.
Yeah. I
And
almost feel like this is the reason, sorry to interrupt you.
yeah,
I feel like we have been having retrograde, retrograde, retrograde after retrograde, and it's been coming in so quickly that some people are like, God, I can't, like, I just got over that retrograde. Now I'm in another one. But
yeah,
those are an opportunity because the
exactly.
retrograde is here.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So that requires us to then look at it differently. We have to change our own internal narrative. We can get stuck in, well, it's just another retrograde. And then the biggest thing, and this is how I phrase it to my clients, is we come from that narrative. And so my metaphor is I think about it like in comic books, when you have like a thought bubble above the person's head and whatever they're saying or thinking kind of comes from that. So most of us are going to live most of our life when we're unaware, again, 95% unconscious, that we're coming from with the arrow pointing downward. So whatever is inside of that bubble in terms of the thought, the narrative, the projection, whatever, that then we are little marionettes on a string and we are coming from whatever the thought says. And then we live our life like a zombie coming from that point of view. And we all do this on various levels. So the work here, the first work is awareness. Awareness is step one. I say that ad nauseam, which means like mindfulness, self-reflection, awareness levels, the point that we can have some insight to go within. And then what happens is a magical thing starts to take place where we shift the direction of the arrow.
Yeah.
And now we remember the truth of life, which is that we are the thinker. And up there in the cloud are the thoughts. And so once that happens, now we remember, it's like smelling salts. We wake up and we remember, oh yeah, that's right. I am the thinker. I get to have a choice here. So what's up there? Can I question that? That concept of reframing is one of the most powerful concepts in all of therapy. And this goes back thousands of years to the ancient Greeks with like Epictetus and all of those types of philosophers that we're going through and we're saying, just like in a stoic way, like, is this true? What are the facts here? How do I know that this is true? Can I question this? Can I poke holes in that? And we create a shift. And that shift, this separation, then has us move away from coming from. Coming from is the arrow pointing downward. We're now coming from whatever the thought is that's sponsoring everything as we go through our zombie life. And now that arrow is shifting upwards. And now what we're doing is we're looking at. Looking at versus coming from are two complete universes apart from one another. That is so important. This is the starting point for all of us because that separation is what's required. And we're likely going to see in the next few months such bombshell information being released that it's going to almost be like a crowbar where it forcibly jolts people to be like, whoa, wait a minute here. Here's a line for 96% of people, right? 4 to 6% probably going to be lost forever. But the rest of everybody, something's going to have to happen to like be like a lightning bolt and wake them out, which means there has to be more emotion that's pushed from even a source that they trust as a narrative for them to say, okay, this is a line even for me, And then when that happens, now that separation starts to begin where they can start looking at things and questioning, right? That's the whole awakening process that we've been through, that you start looking back and saying, okay, now I need to question some things. And that's a very precarious time, just like it was for us, because now our whole worldview, our schema is what they call it, is now put into question. It's a very raw moment because now we're like, okay, wait a minute. What else might not be true? What else do I need to question? What else do I need to now look up at that thought bubble and say, are there any other things that I've been perhaps lied to about? And that's the start of going down the rabbit holes. That's taking the red pill, as they say.
I love it. As you're speaking, you use the rubber band ball. Inside Out movie keeps coming in, and I thought that they handled that beautifully. But when Riley, right, she had all these held beliefs, family, her
Yeah.
sports, those are all of her identity factors, what she created to make her identity of Riley. When all of those went away, that
Yeah.
was when she was spiraling and she ran away from home and she couldn't even think clearly because she had no held beliefs to back herself up to, right?
Right. That's
And it
right.
was her struggle to come back to, and remember, like they screwed in that light bulb and they played that one memory for her, and it was home. So
Mhm.
it is, we are watching all of the islands, right, of held beliefs just be
Yeah.
cut off across.
Yeah.
And there will be this moment of, what can I trust? Where are my feet even landing right now? And
That's right.
so I have one statement and one question. So I remember I was shown a vision of all of these ships came in, but with the ships came in, it was because this great unveiling had happened, not the ships, but of like information, of news. And at the
Mhm.
same time, this information and news came in because I showed the vision of all the people walking around. They went like they froze because their brain, it was too much for them to they could not, they didn't know where to land it. So they were frozen here. And all of these ships then came in back to back, butt to butt, and they put out this kind of like an emotion, honestly.
Mhm.
But then what it did was open up everyone's heart. And
Mm.
when they went through the heart, their whole bodies went like this. And then it, like, these billboards popped up, and then they were reading the information on these billboards, and they're like, oh, like, then they could accept the information because it was coming in through their heart space had opened up
Right.
versus trying to
That's right.
ram it through the held beliefs, which they got
Exactly.
stuck. And I always found that extremely interesting. Now, my question to you is, we are seeing all of these things being unveiled right now rapidly, rapidly. And I pulled a card earlier, and it was trust the timing. Sorry, the stupid thing, but trust the timing and trust the wave you came in on, and time is not running out, but trust the timing of all of this. But
Mhm.
does it matter who is giving the information? Do you think that plays a major role? Are we going to need a more neutral person to be the megaphone of
Mhm.
these great truths? Because if somebody has a very strongly held belief of, orange man bad, right, and Elon Musk is the evil billionaire, if
Yeah.
they're always the ones who are giving out this information, will it ever truly land or be received? Or do we need someone to come in who is a neutral, and it comes from that person?
Mhm.
I would love to know
Great.
your thoughts on that.
I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. It's very fascinating though to see all the plan that we have anticipated for so long unroll in the way that it's unrolling. This is the largest operation in the history of the world, and there's been so much depth and time and quantum computing that's been used to look at the algorithms and find the absolute best path moving forward to do the greatest good with the least amount of damage. So I trust that, however that's going to unfold. My thought on this, my theory, if you will, seeing the evidence of everything unfold now, it's brilliant because from like a psychological point of view, you're going to have a lot of loudness in the beginning. You're going to have the Elizabeth Warrens and the Chuck Schumers and everyone scream their loudest right now saying, just an interview that he did the other day, he was saying, well, of course there's waste, comma, but we don't want to take a meat hammer to it. So that's the only argument they have now. Okay, but what about these congressional oversight committees that have been in power for decades and decades? Let's take those two politicians alone. How long have they been in power? How much money have they cut? You know, so it's who's doing it and what's being found. And right now they can't argue with what's being found. They're only arguing with who's doing it. But that's only going to last for so long. Eventually, the data, which is this neutral thing itself, is going to start prevailing more and more and more as the onion gets peeled back. And when you have Kash Patel come in and all the Epstein files come out, and you have like D5, right? The avalanche. So Laura, what was her last name? Laura Loomer, Laura, the congresswoman from Florida, like how she's unveiling all these conspiracies that we've known for decades, right? Like her big speech that she did last week. She's going to be unveiling the assassination of JFK, RFK, MLK, 9/11 files, UFOs. I mean, good Lord. Like you should go back and listen to that one speech for folks who haven't listened to it yet, because it's like every truther's like dream, like Christmas morning, to have all this information come out. And it's not about like revealing conspiracies. It's about just saying we're on a mission for truth to be exposed. And if
Yeah.
we're in this age of Aquarius, of course that's going to happen, you know? So as this information comes out, whether if it's from those congressional committees, whether if it's from the data that's coming out from the audits, whether if it's from another source that we don't even know yet that's coming out of left field that they've had waiting in the wings or whatever, that information is going to have to forcibly be shared eventually on mainstream news. And so for those who are in that silo that still implicitly trust that, once the data comes out, the information comes out, regardless of who, like for example, let's just say USAID now gets linked to Warren and Schumer. Okay, so then that's another poke in the hole of that rubber band ball belief that these politicians are the good guys and everyone else is the bad guy, right? The black and white viewpoint. That now we start to question, wait a minute, are these criminals? Are these people who are actually on the take? You know, and here we are with taking that step back and now starting to question. It's not going to be very long, and it's going to be really flimsy at first. But the point is, it's like a muscle. Like you're going back and you're having to flex this over and over again, like you're at the gym. And then more information comes out. Oh, so who? The CIA or Mossad or whatever was involved in JFK? But we were lied to, especially the baby boomer generation, which is still, so stuck with the official narrative. Huh. So what does that mean? Well, I guess I've always known that intuitively, but now it's official. It's another point of reflection. Take a step back. And so the more and more this information comes out in waves, and then you get Epstein, that's going to be the big bombshell. Because once you get kiddos involved, you're going to get everybody on board. That's what I think. And so
Yeah.
once that comes out with the trafficking, game over.
Game over. Game over. That, because that is one thing that is the neutral zone.
Yeah.
No matter
Yeah.
what party,
Exactly.
everyone
That's
is
right.
on board with, we have to protect children.
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. No matter culture. Well, there are some cultures that unfortunately do hurt children, but language, country, you got to protect your kids.
Yep. That's a golden thread right there, because it speaks back again to our psychology. Our biological underpinnings are about taking our kiddos and protecting them. And so that's going to be a golden thread throughout the entire planet. And then so it's going to be in waves, right? You're going to have more of this first phase here of, okay, so everything that's going on with the audit, that's what's coming out now. And then you're going to have negative and a positive. So this is kind of behaviorism. So the negative is going to be, wow, look at all this mismanaged money going for condoms in Gaza, or whatever it is, Elmo Sesame Street shows in Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever it was, So you have all of that. It's like, well, I don't know if our money should always be necessarily going to that, or this money that's just unaccounted for, like billions of dollars. So there's a negative. But then now that we've been able to claw back this money, now we're going to give it back as $5,000 to $8,000 stimulus checks, to help everybody in terms of like tax deductions and whatnot. Okay, so that's a good thing. I don't like who it's coming from, because Orange Man's still bad, but I don't mind this money. I'll take it. What am I going to say? No,
So the newest video that was coming out, I was watching it this morning on X, is, and this is a unifier because people are losing their collective cookies over it. It was a video of in Gaza, and they were walking through the caskets because it came out that they killed a mother and two of her babies.
Wow.
And are walking their caskets out. And this video is going viral because, number one, the person who recorded it was recording it in a cheering and a happy stance, right? So they were bragging. It was a braggadocious video. And number two, everyone that was around, and it was crowds of thousands, they were all happy and cheering at the death of babies.
Wow.
And they are, so now all the people who have been a part of that, pro Hamas side in Gaza now
Mm.
have to say, oh, whoa, do I really want to align myself with people who are ecstatic that two babies
Right.
were murdered purposely because they were hostages,
Yeah.
and then they just in cold blood murdered them. So yes.
Well, it's good that information like this is going viral, because here's another poke, right? In terms of that core belief. It's almost like a pail of water, and you're poking it to have more of the water come out. And eventually the pail is going to get empty. That initially the cognitive dissonance is going to kick in, where it's like a railroad track. Do I go the well-trodden path of what I'm familiar, where I just ignore all the information that's, inconvenient for me to have to pay attention to? Or
Mhm.
eventually, am I going to have to take a shift and go on the other tracks and be like, ooh, now I really need to self-reflect and question and go deeper with all of my stuff. And once we do that, that's hard. That takes a lot of cognitive resources mentally to do that. And if we're in this silo world where no one else is doing that, and we're all just projecting, this is how you form like socially engineered narcissism, if you will. And
Yeah.
so, but eventually there's going to be enough of those types of videos that you're saying where people are going to have to be forced to question, wait a minute. It's like that British comedy series where the actors were trying to were playing Nazis, and then it's a viral clip that you'll see, and they're like, are we the baddies? Like at some
Yeah.
point they start to question, you know? And
Yeah.
so that's what's going to happen eventually here. Like, are we on the wrong side of history? Are we now supporting people who are promoting genocide and all the things that let's say like the classic liberals of like the 60s, and the baby boomer generation and whatnot, like all of them were all anti-government and pro-peace.
Yeah.
And now you see them nowadays, and it's like the narrative's completely flipped. We're now the party that promotes what was his name? The vice president during Bush's reign, Cheney,
Training.
and having them like be on our side and promoting Kamala. Like we're promoting war. Like, wait a minute here. I need to kind of start to question. And so all of this shaving that's going on, people are like, eventually you're going to hit various breaking points as things get more and more intense. The volume's being cranked up, and at each crank, then you're going to get more people who are like, okay, you know what, this is my ceiling. But what you're seeing is more and more people getting closer to that point if they're not there yet.
Yeah.
And so our work then is to hold compassion for them as hard as it can be, because by
Mhm.
default we might want to be like, I told you so, I told you so. But it's holding compassion because they're in a very fragile state, just like we were when we were starting to wake up. Because it's like, well, wait a minute, hold on, my life is a lie. Like I do have to question some things now, and that's a very fragile time, because there's a lot of questioning that's going on, a lot of emotional disruption going on internally. And eventually they might still decide, you know what, screw it. I'm taking the old railway path and just ignoring all this stuff. But eventually, as more and more waves come out with the information, it's going to be undeniable. And then they're going to be from like neutral sources, videos that come out, data that comes out, military trials, that information's being revealed and whatnot, that will have to be shared on TV. When all that information comes out, then they're going to be like, oh my God. And they're going to look around, and then their friends are going to be crying and be like, oh my God. And then it's going to be this mass collective furthering of the awakening that's already started. We're already on the trajectory. It's just seeing every chapter of that continue to unfold.
Yeah. The probably the group that I'm going to hold the most compassion for in regards to, like, we are going to really have to hold space for these individuals. I'm sorry, I've seen a couple viral videos, and that is the soldiers who,
Mm,
who have gone deep down into those rabbit holes, and they are now questioning themselves, just like you said, wait, am I the bad guy?
yeah, right.
And, and they're bawling like, I was just following orders. I was told this, I was told this, and we killed women and children were involved, and I bombed that, and
That's right.
they the level of compassion that we are going to have for these individuals to keep them here. Do you know what I'm saying when I say that?
Yeah.
Um through this process, because again, it's we you only know what you know, and it's not fair
Mhm.
to hold people to this level when they had no idea.
Yeah.
They had such a held belief that I am doing what is right because that's what my whole core beliefs is affirming to me.
Mhm.
It's not, it's, yeah, we just can't go back and be like, oh no, get rid of all of them. That doesn't, it doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, there's lots of layers, but within this compassion, here's the beautiful part that it forces us, and then collectively we contribute to the larger vibration of upgrading the planet, which is the trajectory anyway with all of this. The truth has to be exposed. That's kind of phase one. Then justice and, holding people accountable, that's going to lead to kind of calming the temper. Like if you watch videos now, everyone's who's already kind of seeing this is getting really hot, like a cat on a hot tin roof of like, we demand justice, accountability. What's going on? When are we going to have like, yeah, exactly, exactly. And understandable, believe me, but it's how do we kind of temper that movement toward the next phase of justice and, accountability and whatnot. There has to be layers to it because at the same time we have to keep the temperature cool enough for all the people who aren't there yet, so that we don't. I think we're past this timeline, this possibility of like a civil war and whatnot. I think we've had with the Biden years, we've had enough where people are like, okay, I'm done with this. So the temperature's really cooled and they've gotten agitated, which only adds more people to kind of this other side. But we'll have to see as the news unlocks the map. We'll have to see kind of more of what the next stage of things unfold based on what's occurring in the news cycles, in terms of like, okay, here's the next part of the narrative,
Yeah.
and how it
Yeah.
unfolds.
And I have to say, I'm not hot for it. I think just like you, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
now that we can all talk about this openly, I've actually known this for like 20 years and
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
really ready to see, I'm just ready to see some, even though the rest have already happened. They just, sorry guys, the rest have already happened, but I'm just really ready for it to be out in the public for people to understand that, yeah, no, you can't actually become a globalist and try to run the entire planet and treat everybody like your own personal work slaves.
Exactly.
I think one of the I think a hard thing too for especially for Americans to truly wrap their brains around is we have literally been the slave workforce of the entire world.
Yep.
Genuinely, we have been fed this narrative of American exceptionalism. Like we are
Yep.
the best, we have the brightest, we are the richest nation, and we work hard. And I mean,
Right.
they knew that. They knew that it has been so. It's because it's DNA. It's bred in our DNA in this country. We know how to get our that nose down to the ground and get things done. Um,
Yeah.
Again, because we're the rebels. Like it's again, it's in the DNA. That energy gets handed down through the ancestry. We know how to get our hands dirty. But they took advantage of that and they
Exactly.
just fed out all of it, which we're finding out, fed out to the whole entire world. But in all reality, nobody was benefiting from that other than the few.
Yeah.
Like it just came out yesterday. They found Stacey Abrams, which unfortunately we even know who that woman's name is. It's just embarrassing to begin with, but she got $2 billion
I saw that.
for climate change, and they still don't even know where any of that money went.
Right.
It was
Exactly.
and to they noted they said the LLC, like what the nonprofit, I'm sorry, not LLC, the nonprofit that she opened up, it was only valued at $100.
Wow.
And then like a week later she got $2 billion.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's how it works. There's going to be back doors. So you're going to have that. You're going to have like book deals, like we've heard about before, and then any sort of way. Art is another way. You have this like art where it's like the modern art where they just splash paint. Oh, that's $5 million right there for that painting.
Money laundering.
Yeah, exactly, exactly,
So
exactly.
so anyone listening who doesn't understand that, I'll go down this rabbit hole with you. So one of the reasons why the art world is so celebrated amongst them is, do you know that when you ship crates across country lines, because it's art, they don't get opened. They
Ah,
cannot
okay.
open up that crate and see what's inside.
Very
So
good.
it was a huge human trafficking front
Yeah,
as well. There
that's
was
why so many of the pictures are as big as they are too.
Yep. And the another thing that these artists will do, I actually this is when I was really into my my deep anon days. Um I was working with a group of other people. We were all scattered around the country. But we were putting two pieces together. This artist that was over in Austria, she had all of a sudden risen to fame. Her coffee book was what brought her all of her money, but it was a coffee book of all of these orphans, and I believe that the children were actually from Germany, but
Mm,
um she was an Austrian, and they pieced together all of the children that were in this coffee book. First off, they all looked like they were on drugs. They all looked gaunt. I mean, just shallow, hollowed looking things, very skinny, malnourished. They were all orphans.
wow.
And it was so what people look at as, oh, this is art, this is a coffee book. That is, you know how when we were little kids, we had like the Sears Christmas book and we would look through it and circle what we wanted for Christmas. That's what
Right.
the buyers and procurers of children, that's what that book was. That's how
Mm,
they procured children. And they would say,
wow.
I want model number 34.
Mm.
So, yeah, I
Remember the
remember
same
that
with Sesame Street? That with different episode names, that's how they would kind of go through the catalog. Obviously that website, the furniture website, what was that?
Wayfair,
Yep.
Wayfair.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. There's all kinds of different modalities that they were using
Hmm.
to procure all those. And that will all come out. I remember, you know, so one thing I've been saying lately is the people who have dug deep into this for decade, you know, over 10 years plus, or decades, we had the luxury of being able to dig, and then we could step back and allow that to find a place in our brain, in our body, and we, you know, and by doing that, then we could, okay, I just did a 3 week rabbit hole. I need to disassociate now for a couple weeks or a month.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me figure this out. Okay, now I'm ready. I'm going to go dig deep again.
Hmm.
What's coming up now? Because again, the lines have split.
Yeah.
It's they don't have time to do that.
Exactly.
And that is another level of compassion
There we are.
that
Bingo.
that I
Bingo.
have for
Yeah.
that, because it is just like, and I know why Trump is doing it. It's so brilliant, and that's number one how you know it's already done is because they're
Yeah.
able to do it this way. But it's like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm embarrassingly like living on X because it's just like coming out so fast, and
Oh, I know, me too.
yeah, like I'm just reading all the time. It's my
My
journalism
wife's like, "What are you doing? You're back on the computer again. Why are you doing this?" And I'm like, everything that we've like been waiting for is all coming out.
on the
It
hour,
or
on the
not to.
hour,
Yeah, exactly.
on
Yeah.
the hour.
The
It is.
executive orders and just all the information. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
there's a reason why, again, this beautiful divine plan.
Yeah.
There's no other way to explain it other than to truly understand it was a divine plan that
Right.
a certain number of us agreed to come down and do all this work for years, figure
Yeah.
all this out. So during this time,
That's
when
right.
the majority are losing it, right? Because we're the calm one. We
Yeah.
can calmly sit here and then be of service.
Yeah. Abby, I have a recurring, how do I want to describe it? Like a video clip or just like a download that comes to me in meditation that all of our tribe, all of our community, and there's new ones that I meet that I get this even more strongly in the past, maybe 6 months, 9 months, because they're kind of newer into the fold, into the tribe. But this vision is all of us being elsewhere in another dimension, on another planet, whatever, and agreeing to sign up to join this like military, for lack of a better word. And we're all part of the same troop, the same clan, or whatever you want to say, brigade. And we all agree to come down to Earth. We all sip from the cup of amnesia as we do. We all are on our own individual paths. We wake up when we're meant to wake up 10 years ago, whatever it is, 20 years ago. And with this process, we're on our own individual journey, but through the agreements of like soul contracts and divine timing and everything, we reunite and we find our soul tribe again. And as we find this is the next chapter unfolding. And as we've all met, where we're like, oh my God, like I'm meant to know you. Like you and I, like we have like a soul connection. There's something deeper. And
Yeah.
then we meet more, and it's just this frequency thing. And then as we continue to come along, now we're like, it's not just a spiritual thing, it's like a truther thing. And there's different dimensions that we're going through. And so then as we kind of learn all this and we're connected with other people who are learning all this too, and we're like, oh my God, like the rabbit holes go deep. Have you done this? Have you researched that? Have you explored this, et cetera? And then we all learn from one another. That's us like in the trenches. And we did that chapter, that phase, the bulk of it at least, when we were meant to do it, just like you're saying, for us to be here now, because now we are going to be the ambassadors for what's coming next.
Yeah.
And that's the real shift that's taking place. Because as we come more from our heart, we've done the head work. Now we're coming from our heart. For those who are kind of one step, 20 steps behind us, that increased compassion. The phase one is having the truth come to light, right? Sunlight is the best disinfectant, as they say. There's so many different metaphors you can take with that phrase. So as that information comes out, and all these people are going through what we went through, then we can hold space, as hard as it is, to be like, I was there once. Like, I get it. You know, you're just a little late to the party, but thank God you're here. Let's all celebrate, you know? And so then as we move forward, that compassion contributes energetically, electromagnetically, etc., to this collective vibration of the planet. So we are actually the originators, if you will, co-creating this collective investment in the vibrational increase that's going on. And so my metaphor that I use in my course and in my lectures and whatnot, when I go speak, is I think about these three different dimensions that we talk about. And everyone's going to have kind of their own twist. This is just mine. But like a building, okay? When we're born, we come into this third dimension. And this third dimension is like the base floor of a building. And so we're all born into this. And the third dimension has certain properties to it. We're asleep, we're living reactively, we're living from emotion and our prior held beliefs because it's safety, it's confirmation, it's patterns, it's familiarity. We're around other people who are on that same frequency, radio wave bandwidth, if you will. And that predictability provides comfort. And then those who are in charge exploit that familiarity and comfort. And they say, hey, this is what Benjamin Franklin warned us. He said, hey, be careful of the people, the charlatans, who want to trade you freedom for safety. Because safety is going to be familiar and you're going to say, hey, you want this piece of candy, little one? You know? And so we live in this world. And eventually something happens where it forces us to move from looking at reality this way to then start to look up and be like, hey, I think there's more going on here in this building than just this one floor with all these rooms of daily life, right? We get up, we go to work, we come home, we eat dinner, we spend time with our family, wash, rinse, and repeat for 50 years, 60 years, whatever. And eventually, and this is what, the philosophers talk about and whatnot, that eventually something happens or there is a situation that occurs to us that then a ladder is presented in our path.
Mm-hmm.
And once we take this ladder, to some degree, depending on how extensive we go up the ladder, there's no turning back. That's the rabbit hole. That's the red pill. So a ladder could be therapy. A ladder could be plant medicine. A ladder could be self-reflection, having conversations, listening to podcasts like this, meeting more tribe who helps us question things further, et cetera, et cetera. And then we go to the next floor. And the next floor, this fourth floor, has different properties to it. It's very unique there because the ceiling is not as tall. So we're kind of cramped over and it's uncomfortable and we don't really like it there. And it leads to this sense of agitation. And we look down and we actually see that the floor below us, which is the ceiling for the floor below, is actually made of glass. So we can now actually look down at that floor below and we can start to question and we can start to say, wow, look at where I was. Look at where all these other people are. Many people I still know. Oh, look, there's Jerry and Tom and Sally. And they're stuck on this chessboard as a pawn. But now I'm looking from this higher dimensional awareness and I'm saying, here's the entire chessboard. Here's what's playing out next. Here's me being able to question and look at instead of coming from, like I talked about earlier. So you're getting this confluence now of psychology and this vibrational awareness of dimensional shifting. And so as we're now looking at and we're seeing things, we're starting to question. And then we look up a little bit and we see, just like we're saying here, our tribe. We're high-fiving people. We're like, oh my God, you see that too of what just happened? Yeah, oh, I totally see that. Oh, wow, isn't that crazy? What a trip. What a difference it is being on this floor and looking at things from this different point of view. The
Yeah.
problem here is that this fourth dimensional awareness, this fourth floor, is a limited hangout. It's meant to be a bridge because we're still here. We're not in our heart yet. We're here. And so we look around and we're questioning things and it's agitating us and making us saying, why can't you see it? But they haven't taken the ladder yet. They're still on the lower floor. So they're going to take the ladder when it's time for them because they have to be the ones that walk up. So as they come up, now we're like, hey, high five, welcome to the party. But then we have to keep going. And so that next ladder that we take then makes the 18-inch journey from here down to here. And this is a lot of my work is then using the concepts of psychology to help make that bridge, to help make that connection, because that's where we're all going on a collective nature. We're moving from this third dimensional reality that now more and more people are starting to question and wake up. This is why you saw such a shutdown with comedy or with free speech. My God, look at what's happening in Germany, right? They're arresting people that post a meme. Holy
UK
Moses.
too. That's in UK too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. In Ireland, it's like you've been down this road before of censoring
Yeah.
free speech. Be careful, This is what JD Vance's speech at the Security Summit was about. So as we start to question things, there's going to be other people in terms of like professions that do this. Therapists help people question. Um, People who are kind of on their spiritual path, healers, people in meditation circles, even religion to some degree, if we get to the roots of what it's about, Um, Comedians is another great one, philosophers. There's a whole list of people that live on this floor because they're looking down and they're reflecting on it, right? Comedians kind of reflect on reality and make us laugh because they're all like, oh my God, that's so true, right? We can relate to it. So then as we continue going on our shift, as we do our now spiritual work to move from the head to the heart on a regular basis, that muscle that we're flexing, then we go to the next floor with that fifth floor, which is 5D consciousness. And that's where we're all headed. That's where we're all going. And this 5D world is a very different concept because there's different properties, just like the fourth floor was once we get to the fifth floor. So on the fifth floor, time doesn't exist. We see reality for what it is. We see the unification of everything. It's all one. If we've had those moments, whether if it's, again, plant medicine, meditation, however it's come to you in downloads, et cetera, that we see, oh my God, like I get it. It just makes sense. It's so clear. And it's all about love. And once we come from that point, that touchstone changes our life. Like what I was saying earlier with the confirmation bias and the emotions that get fed to us of fear and anger, those lower vibrational states, that when we get to higher vibrational emotions, like love, like this unification, like this 5D consciousness, heart-centeredness, that it pierces everything that's going on. And it goes so deep because it touches the core of who we are, that spark of divinity inside of us. And once that gets touched, there's something, it's like an activation that happens. And then we say, oh my God, I just want more of that. Joe Dispenza is a great example of someone who's really capitalizing on this. And this is kind of my big push that I want to add to that conversation of everything that's going on. Because Joe really talks about like neuroscience and habits and meditation. Those are all fantastic things. But I think there's more that's being left on the table that isn't being discussed of how our vibration unfolds throughout an average day. How we can use these concepts from psychology to better harness those in terms of what that means from a spiritual filter or perspective, from a vibrational point of view. Because when we create our reality, it's a simple formula. It's our vibration minus resistance then equals manifestation. So then we have to understand what's on that one side of the equal sign, vibration and resistance. So what's vibration? Vibration, when you break it down, is going to be the thoughts that we think influence our vibration. The emotions that we feel greatly influence our vibration. It's a signal or a messenger to let us know where are we on the radio bandwidth in terms of our frequency or vibration. The actions that we take are an extension of that. So my real kind of dot connection that I had 17, 18 years ago is, okay, wait a minute. Thoughts, emotions, actions, those are the things that signal our vibration. Well, where would I go to learn to master those three areas? And I'm sitting in class one day, my first year of grad school, and I'm like, oh my God, like we're just learning cognitive behavioral therapy and the triangle, and our cognitions, our feelings, and our behaviors are all our psychology. And so I'm like, okay, so where are the people that are really summarizing these two worlds of vibration being your psychology? And to this day, I haven't found anyone that's adequately summarized those two worlds in a way that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
That's what's kind of started my path. So we have to master our psychology to master our vibration. Once we master our vibration, then we have to look at, okay, what are the blocks or the barriers that get in the way of having this vibration bring the manifestations of what we want? What if
Yeah.
it's something in our life or something that we're contributing to the collective? So then we have to use that to then understand what are our blockages? What are the resistance points, which is a lot of what you do in therapy anyway. And
Mhm.
so you're not doing therapy per se, but you're taking these psychological concepts and you're applying them in a totally new approach.
Yeah.
And then when you bridge these two worlds, then you see the simple formula of how life can be easy. We don't have to get caught up in what you were saying in terms of like being these workhorses and having to just work, work, work to make money or live or survive. That's a narrative that's fed to us that becomes a core belief. Then we see that playing out in terms of our life and we live from that stance. It doesn't have to be hard. Life wasn't meant to be hard. Life was meant to be an experience for us, whatever that means. We are the painter holding the brush. If we believe it's going to be hard, then guess what picture we're going to paint? And then we look at the picture and we say, see, this is reality.
Yeah.
But if we change what's going on in here, then we change how we're painting, then we see a different reality. And then we further confirm that is our truth. That's reality. And so all of this then together helps. My intent here is to use science to help people understand that you can, when you mix psychology along with the cutting edge quantum physics, hello, that everything that's coming out there. And now we're getting such confirmations. You want to talk about confirmation and truther and awakening and everything. Go to the latest research on quantum physics, quantum mechanics. It's all coming out that we're literally scientifically proven at this point with Nobel Prize pieces being handed out. We are literally creating a reality. It's not woo woo or mystical anymore. Like it's hard science now. So if
Yeah.
we know that, and that's kind of our starting point, and then we understand our psychology, then we use these things to create a bridge to make life a higher vibrational experience. And when we do that, we leave that third floor and we start our journey to go higher. And then once we spend more of our time in that fifth floor, that 5D realm, then we're contributing to the collective energies, the collective vibration of then shifting the whole planet. It's
Yeah.
the trippiest time to be alive to see the shift that's going on. But that's why we're here.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many it's so okay, so two things. So first off with manifestation. So we've been taught for so long that manifestation is all in the mind, right? Like you just like what are your thoughts? What do you want to manifest? But
Mhm.
you have to put the physical body there
Yep,
along with it.
that's right.
It's so when I talk about people about, doing your mantras or manifesting, what does your body feel like
Mhm,
already there? What does
mhm.
it taste like? What are you hearing? What are you smelling? You have to put all of the senses there and know it as an already lived experience.
Right.
And that is how you manifest because every time you're putting out that sense there and what it is, you're creating almost this vibrational bringing
You're
it
pulling it
fully.
to you. You're
Yeah,
magnetizing.
yeah, yep, you're pulling it all the way into you. And that is the secret spot for manifesting. My son actually last night he told me that the night prior they have prom coming up and he doesn't have had any plans yet. And he said before I went to sleep, I was actively manifesting that I need to have people come in. Like, who are the people that I are going to come in to do prom with? What are the plans going to be? And he said, I was drawing in the people towards me. And he went to school yesterday, and who approached him? All of the people said, hey, we need to make plans for prom. Do you want to come and do prom? Like, he said, it's done. Prom is now organized. And he goes,
Yeah.
it all happened so fast. And
And what a beautiful gift to have planted enough seeds, Abby, for him to get it at such an early age. Hello. and then to have him play it out, right? Here we are back to what we were talking about earlier, have him do it for himself. So now he sees it.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh my God. So that for the rest of his life, even if he has moments where he slips back into 3D subconsciousness and slips on the banana peel, he can come back to the prom example and he can say, I remember when that really worked for me.
Yeah.
And it created such a touchstone moment of like, wow, this stuff is real.
Yeah, absolutely. So then the other part that I wanted to talk about was, we're talking about going up into 5D and embodying that. And it's interesting because I've seen there are certain individuals that are here, and by individual, I'm not talking about like 10, there's thousands of us, but they've showed me they're anchoring in, and it's like I gotta anchor before I can go up.
Mm,
So because when we anchor and then enough go up, it almost creates this whoop, and then the rest come up along with it. And
mhm.
so there's these strategic light points. And by light points, I mean the light body, right?
Yeah.
When we are fully activating this and really grounding into this reality, when that is so, again, grounded, it's like whoop, and then we pull everything up, and that has been activated over the past number of years, and it's becoming more rapid. And the thing that you talked about with 5D, where we're seeing like where time doesn't exist, I think that if people wanted a visual, the movie Arrival actually for me really encompasses the language that they showed. It was circular, right? So it was both a language and a representation of time.
Mm.
And have you seen the movie Arrival?
Haven't, no.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you're watching that
Could be
this
in my watch list. All
you're
right.
watching it this evening. This evening.
Okay. I'll do it.
Okay. Amy Adams stars in it, and Jeremy uh from Avengers. Jeremy, I can't remember his last name, but it's essentially an alien race comes down here.
Okay.
And the movie's based off of a world famous book, but I think I've watched this movie 5 times because when the
Wow.
first time I've watched it, I had such a cathartic response to it.
Mm,
And everything made sense within it.
mm,
But this species comes down and essentially is giving a gift. I'm not going to give any more away,
mm,
but their language is circular and it also represents time. And
interesting.
I believe the book might even be called About Time. And then the movie Arrival was one of the, like a huge section of the book.
Mm.
Um, but highly recommend everyone to watch it. Actually, everyone, if you've not seen Arrival, you have to watch it. But to me, that really embodies 5D. And the thing I find interesting is so many people have come up to me and they think, 5D, 6D, that well, when we're there, there's no longer any it's only love and light, right? So I think this false narrative of love and light and love and light, and when I'm in 5D it's all love and light, and that is not the case. You
Right.
still have strong emotions. I mean, I have been with beings that are 5, 6, 7D,
Mm, mhm.
and they have strong opinions and they have strong emotion, but the secret to it is they cycle through it so quickly. They don't make that emotion become their entire identity. It doesn't take them years of living within a trauma space, which is 3D, right? Because
Right.
we need that. Again, like so much is about creation and friction, and what came through recently, like 3D is, this is love and peace. I mean, I'm sorry, peace and war. We need this because the more you have this friction, it sparks light, right? And that's
There you go.
expansion, and that's creation. And
Right.
we rely on the friction to create in 3D.
Contrast.
But yes, but when we're in 5D, you don't need friction to create for creation there any longer.
That's right. And the way I think about it, 6D is then how do we live a 5D life experience while we're still on a 3D planet? You know, like how do we take that so that we can stay in that frequency when we're around people that just aren't there yet? We're on 107.5 and we're living that, 5D FM, and we're having those, heart-based music and everything that's coming out of the speakers. And then we're around the people that are just like, death metal or whatever it is for you, in terms of like 3D music. And it's like, and it like dampens my vibe. I heard someone say, don't yuck my yum the other day. But
I
it's like,
love
how do we deal with that world? I think what I foresee happening, I'm already seeing it happen, is that the people who are in our individual tribes, like there's so much of a shift that's going on that these people are going through their individual life experiences through a series of coincidences that then are having them move and move closer to their tribe people. And that we're going to be living more in like a clumped experience just because of sheer magnetism that's happening.
Yeah.
And that's what I see kind of happening more and more. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of people that are getting ready and move to Southwest Florida just in the past year and a half, 2 years, you know?
So many people, so many people. Why do you think that is? Do you think it is because the tribe is wanting to live close to each other, or is it because there's something about certain geographical areas?
I think it's a collection of things. I think it depends on what dimension we're kind of looking at it. From a 3D point of view, sure, they might say, this job isn't working out anymore. I have a family member or a partner that's in Florida, and so I'm just going to be closer to them. I mean, that's kind of what happened to me. I was in Portland and then Victoria's in Florida. And so I'm just like, well, this is the natural progression of things. And hello, I'd rather take Florida than like cold Minnesota or Wisconsin this time of year or something. And the more you come down here, then we're like, oh my God, this is such a high vibrational place. This is like living in paradise on vacation, but this is your home. I mean, yesterday I went out during lunch onto the porch and just sat in a hammock and just listened to the little pond and seeing the palm trees sway in the breeze. It's just like the perfect time of year right now. Now, of course, we've got hurricanes and disaster in September, and you the story of how we lost our home and whatnot. But right now, it's paradise. And so, from that point of view, that's how some people are coming. From another point of view, it's like, hey, I want to be closer to tribe. I'm willing to make this move and come down because where I'm at now just doesn't vibe with me anymore. But I think when we go to a higher dimensional plane, it's a vibrational thing. It's here we are back to like law of attraction, if you want to phrase it that way. As you
Yeah.
were saying earlier with how we manifest, like when I remember watching The Secret, and that was really the start for me of like my awakening. But as you and I both know, that like they left a lot out, but it was at least a catalyst to start for many people. But we manifest more than just with up here, our thoughts. That's just part of the story. And so we have to have emotion involved. That what the latest science is now showing that our thoughts are predominantly electrical. So this is the science of manifesting. And this is what I find just fascinating. Our thoughts are electrical. So our thoughts are going out into the quantum field that's all around us. And those thoughts take a wave, an infinite potential out in the quantum field, and it collapses that wave into a particle. It condenses and downloads it. Think about it like water. If you change the rate of frequency of vibration with all the molecules and you increase that rate of vibration, what does it turn into? Steam. Okay. Steam is less tangible, it's more energetic at its base. And yet, when you lower that frequency of vibration, what happens to the dihydrogen oxide? It now turns into ice. It's more matter and less energy. It's the same formula, though, the same particles. It's just the rate of vibration. So that's
Yeah.
the same for us. That's the same for how we manifest, that we're plucking out something from the infinite field of our desires. This is why we're manifestors, creators, and we turn it into a particle. But now we have that particle hanging out in a different dimensional space in the what did they call it? I'm trying to think of what Abraham Hicks called it. They had a name for where it goes into the vortex. And then we have to pull that into our life. That's where emotion comes in because emotion is predominantly magnetic in its quality. So we have to think it, but then we have to feel it and embody it in our body, just like you're saying.
Yeah.
And once we do that, now we're pulling that particle into our life, which shows up in the form of coincidences and synchronicities. And just like what your son was saying, I went to school and then all the kids are like saying, okay, what's prom going to look like? Right? That's the manifestation at work. And once we understand that simple formula, then it's like, oh, okay, well, then I got to get clear about what I'm putting out electrically. And then I got to get really clear about what I'm putting out magnetically. And I have to have both of those things on the same radio frequency in order for this to work intentionally. It's always working. It's not as though we're activating law of attraction. Like I see that in marketing sometimes, but we're not activating anything. It's always working. We're just wanting to use it to our intentional benefit. And
Yeah.
once we understand that, then it's like, okay, well, then I need to master this and this. And then, of course, the inspired action that I take as a result. I can't sit on my couch and then have things just magically come into my life. I've got to take action, but I want to take inspired action. I don't want to do the Tony Robbins what did he call it? Massive action. that I want to take, because here we are back to workhorsing and having to hustle to get everything. That's not 5D. That's an outdated model of like I have to, it's just an odds game of I have to do this enough and then something will manifest. You can do that, but why? It's really slow. You still have to take action, but be more intentional and streamlined in terms of when you do it,
Yeah. Yeah. That's so I would love to have your perspective. So within I've been kind of doing some deep dives within the human design, right? So
Mm,
design. So
fascinating subject.
yeah, manifestor, generator, projector. So I am a projector and I'm a 5/1 projector. And the thing about projectors is the waiting for the invitation.
Mhm.
So, because and once I read it, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that's absolutely has been me. I have never wanted to ever push myself on somebody or ask. It's essentially like if I wasn't invited to your birthday party, I'm not gonna come up to you and be like, hey, can I come to your birthday party? Right? Like, no, I'm waiting for the invitation. You either
Yeah.
want me to be there or you don't, and I'm cool with that.
Mhm.
Um, so at what stage, because this is where I'm at, like, because I need to wait for the invitation, right? I've always wanted to do Egypt. I've always wanted to do that since I was 7 years old. I'm doing that now because I was invited to do it. And once the
Mm,
invitation came in, yeah, yes, and everything manifested and everything worked out. So
totally.
what is that happy medium for projectors, for instance, between I need to actively be a participant in working, meaning manifesting. I want to get the word work completely out of the language. Um,
Mhm.
I am moving forward and manifesting, but yet I also, within projector, I'm waiting for the invitation. So I'm trying to work that out in my own brain
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
sometimes the forward action can feel like I'm forcing something. Because
Hmm.
the minute something feels forced, especially for me, I'm like, oh, yep, nope, that's my sign that it's wrong.
Hmm.
If I have to force it, then it's not for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
Where
Hmm.
where is that in between working towards, moving forward towards, manifesting towards,
Yeah.
or it's not forcing it? And I don't know. I don't have the answer to that.
Yeah. I think this is where we work on our skill level as manifestors. That it
Mhm,
starts off with understanding the basics and working through it and all those things. And then as we kind of go along, then we ask kind of more fine-tuning questions, which is what you're asking. Beautiful question. So I think just first blush, kind of right off the top of my mind, I'd have to think about it more to get maybe a more in-depth answer. But I think right now it's about saying the work on the first level is internal. So
mhm,
I have to get myself into alignment.
mhm,
The more that I do that, then I know that outside reality is nothing more than a mirror. So I can't, let's say, for example, get upset that something isn't manifesting out there yet. And I'm waiting for that because I'm just looking in the mirror. So it's all plastic, if you will. It's moldable. And so the majority of the work, like 90, 95% of it, is then going to be that internal work of me getting into that space of even if we're not there yet. Like I love the phrase getting ready to get ready, you know. And then
mhm,
as we do this work, then we're getting more into this kind of place where we're like increasing the momentum or the heat level. Like we get to this place where it's like it's so hot that we just know it's going to happen and we can feel it's like right at our fingertips about ready to pop. And the more that we can do this manifestation work internally, then there's a trust level that gets built the more frequently we do this. And our confidence level grows where it's like, I don't have to wait for anything out there, that
yeah.
I know it's going to come. I know it's going to come and it's going to come. Here's the beautiful part. It's going to come in a way that I don't predict. It has to, by definition, because if it's coming to me in a predictable way, what's the world of predictability? The world of
Mhm,
3D. But if
yeah.
I'm really going to manifest on purpose, I'm in a different dimensional space. I'm in 5D. And by its very nature, 5D is unpredictable. I'm pulling out of everything out of the world of pure potentiality, an unpredictable concept. Now I'm manifesting it in terms of my thought and having that wave collapse and then
Mhm,
magnetically drawing it to me. But how it's going to come, that's a beautiful part. That's the mystery of life that I don't have to know, but I
yeah.
know it's going to come. I know it's
Yeah.
going to. And so the
I
more that I can stay there, then the
mhm,
more I'm just looking for those synchronicities without waiting for them, if that
yeah.
makes sense.
Yep. I spent a few months years ago. And so one thing like projectors, and also what we do is going up to that higher perspective and looking for pattern recognition, right? So that's
There you
what.
go. Great.
So I read back to back 3 biographies,
Mm.
and they were all comedians. And because at that point in life, I've there's an aspect of me that I was always kind of toyed around the idea of doing comedy, and I did do improv, and I have done some things in the background. But at any rate, so I'm like, I love their careers. I respect these 3 people. I want to hear their life story. So I read these 3 books back to back. And the thing that all 3 of them had in common was that they had no idea that they were going to end up where they were at.
Mm-hmm.
When they went into the field, and they said, and honestly, all 3 of them, they didn't even really actively go into the field of comedy. It just, they were invited, they said yes, and it was just a continuation of being in these spaces where the invitation came, and they said, all 3 of them said, I just kept saying yes. I
Yeah.
just kept saying yes. And then they said, and now I'm at a point in my life where I look back and I'm like, how did I do all of that? Like,
Mm.
how did that even all happen? Because it was a very easy, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I can do that next month. Yeah, I'll go there this summer. And they're like, and now I can sit back and like, wow, I have this 30-year career that I didn't even know was happening at the time because I was just working
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
having fun.
Yeah.
And now I have this career.
Yeah. So what's happening? Here we are back to the formula. You're in a high vibrational place and
Mhm.
there's very little resistance. And you're
Yeah.
just saying yes, and the universe is providing answers to that. You know,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
difference here is what versus how. Like when I had my major download that came to me at 19, I didn't have the conceptualization or the phrasing to understand what that was, but it pulled back the curtain and it showed me the whole rest of my life. You know, in a matter of 10 seconds, it was like, you're going to be this thing called a clinical psychologist, which I didn't even really know what that was. I thought I was going to go into like marine biology because I love dolphins, or going to be the next Indiana Jones in like archaeology or something. So I'm like, you're going to be this clinical psychologist. You're going to be running a holistic care clinic. You're going to be married to your soulmate. You're going to be running spiritual retreats all over the world. And I'm just like, afterwards, you're in this state of shock and you're just like, what the hell was that? And then I didn't know what to do with that information. And so then that next fall, after that summer, I went back to college my sophomore year and I declared a major in psychology and I never looked back. I mean, I'm sitting there reading my textbooks in my free time. And then when I met Victoria, it was just like the same thing. It was just like, oh, she's the person from your vision, you know. And then I just had another extension, another chapter of the download this past fall when we were at the Mind Nexus gathering. And I'm sitting there doing a CE5 meditation and I'm just like bawling my eyes out. I'm like, okay, well, there's a clue that like something related to the vision is happening next. And Victoria's next to me and she's doing a sound bowl. And then Robert's to the right of me, Robert Gardner, awesome guy. And he's pounding on the drums.
Mhm.
And I just saw the vision again when I was 19. And I'm like, oh my God, this is all unfolding of like my soulmate and I like doing spiritual work together. I was just like, oh, and then we go through this amazing, oh my God, you have to have Braden on the show. He is phenomenal. He is just one of the most fascinating people I've ever come across in my entire life, hands down. And anyway, he led this meditation. And then we all, for me, my experience, and then when I talked to others, they all had the same unfolding in their minds. But we all left with our soul out of our third eye and we dropped the body as if it's clothing that we're taking off like a robe when you're getting ready to take a shower.
Yeah.
And we all go out into space and we're all just kind of projecting as these light streaks, as we're kind of floating around. So my point with all of this is that I knew then at 19, I had a very privileged experience to be like, kind of like in the movie The Matrix, when they download like the program into him. He's like,
Oh
I know
yeah.
Kung Fu, it was
Yeah.
like, I know my life's purpose.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it was like, that's the what, but I didn't know the how. And then the more you learn about this work, the more it's like, well, that's not your job to know the how. You just have to focus on what do you desire? What do you want to do? What feeds your soul? What gives you a high vibrational reflection? And just staying with that, that will allow the universe to do its thing because you're projecting out high vibe. So that's what you're going to get back in the mirror.
Yeah.
And so then that confidence comes of like, I don't have to have all the puzzle pieces put into place of who and when and where and how and all that. That's the universe's job. And so you as a projector, you can see the patterns. That's a big bonus. That's a benefit of being a projector. In addition to just what we all have is the pattern making machine. And then there's just it's a trusting. And then that confidence over time builds. This is what I believe the originators of all these different wisdom traditions and religions were trying to say in their origin.
Mhm.
Like even the word faith. Faith is another word for having this confidence of knowing that everything's going to like play out just like we're saying, you know?
Yeah. The universe likes to work in abundance,
Hmm.
right? So whatever you put out there, it's going to give you more of that. So when you are projecting out there and you are working within, gosh, I keep saying the word work, and I don't like that word. When you're moving in that higher vibration, it's going to say like, oh, they love high vibration. We're gonna give them even more high vibration. And
Right.
yeah, so
Right.
it's working with this abundance. I did this new thing. I was running a hypnosis regression, and in terms of how time is circular, right? There is no linear time. And they were in this lifetime, not this lifetime, in another lifetime, and they were experiencing at an older state of life a certain emotion that was from their inner child, from their youth. And so what I was led to do was, okay, let's pull you back up out of that life up into the quantum. And then once we were up in quantum, we did a full healing. I was
Mhm.
doing light language and, and working on different chakras and removing that. I'm not removing chakras, but removing stuck energy, talking with the inner child. And it's like, okay, now let's come back up. We took 3 deep breaths and went right back down into the same point
Mm,
in that lived experience. And when they went back down into that, everything around them completely shifted and changed.
mm,
And they were like, all the kids are happy. Like where they're at, like, oh, the kids are happy now. And then she started having memories. We put her back down into a completely different timeline in that
nice.
lifetime because we went up in there and we did the healing. And when she came back down, and then that thrust them into a completely different trajectory. And
Mhm.
so knowing that time is not linear, we can always go forward, backwards, whatever we do. It opened for me a whole new level of quantum healing.
Yeah.
We can do this at any time. I've had clients come in and we're working on something and we pull in the inner child, and then I do, instead of healing the physical body that's right there, I do the whole entire healing on the inner child, that younger version of them where the root of the trauma was. And then when
Mm.
we come back and reintegrate down into it, the pattern recognition has shifted. The brain has shifted.
That's right. That's right. You've worked on this skill in your own methodological way of
Mhm,
reframing. Very powerful concept that we talked on earlier.
mhm,
Once you have that reframing, now you have a different schema, a different outlook, a different projection or conceptualization, whether if it's something small and there's a little shift or it's something big, like we're saying here, and her entire narrative of how life is unfolding.
yeah,
And that's like the 5D, right? Everything is perfect as it is. This is the whole point of like the Buddha was trying to say with enlightenment, you know.
yeah,
And what's the vehicle to get to enlightenment? Vipassana meditation, insight meditation, which as we translate into English is mindfulness. So what's
mhm,
mindfulness? Mindfulness is awareness, it's presence, it's being able to do that first step of taking the step back and looking at instead of coming from,
yeah,
everything that you
mhm,
talk about now in like a 3D 4D way with therapy concepts, of mindfulness, of how it's now being applied in all these different ways. Now you're applying it here in terms of the shift, expanding your consciousness, and then once you do that, that's going to force you to kind of have to look at things differently. That's just
mhm,
naturally what unfolds. And once you start looking at things differently, now you're projecting your energy differently. Now you're getting a different confirmation in terms of what's coming back. And this is what's going to further help people. They just need a little outward push because they don't see that yet. They're still asleep, And so they're not woken up to the fact, oh my God, I'm creating all of this. I'm creating my reality, right? They're not there yet. So they're having to wait for an outside source for them to see it. So if they're meant to see it in this life, eventually it will be shown on the news or some other way for them to have the information kind of poke through and get on the inner, to have that little bit of that smelling salt to be like, whoa, wait a minute here. I need to start looking at things differently. I'm being forced to look at things differently. And
yeah,
once that happens, watch out, because now they're on the journey. And then eventually, as they start to look at things differently, there's a natural bleeding into this fourth dimensional place of starting to question things and look at things differently, to now moving from head to heart. This is why you're seeing, like in the younger generations, particularly like the Gen Zers and whatnot, they're like already on board with understanding spirituality and health and, you know, all these different things. And so, because they're at a different entry point. They already see what's happening next, and they're the next wave for all of us to kind of help take the baton once we retire. And so they're having to play catch up more quickly. That's why they're waking up so fast. They're the star seeds, right? And so then they're taking it to the next level. So now all of our work is to do whatever we feel called to do. That's always our work, but especially now. What resonates with you? You know,
Yeah.
do what gives you that highest vibrational feeling of like, yes, this is what life is all about. Like that passion, that energy is like the next step in your path lighting up for you to say, okay, I need to go there. So like the comedians, you know, if that was like, hey, you want to go do this thing? They're like, oh my God, that'd be amazing. I would love to go do that. Then they go do that thing. And then what happens, right? Their career explodes, you know?
Explodes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, can you share with us a little bit, if you want to? I know that you have been spending years and years and years crafting this course.
Mhm.
Would you like to share information on that?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So it's again, there's been an unfolding as kind of like what we're talking about of, you don't have to know the how, you just have to work on the what.
Mhm.
So when I had several different kind of chapters of all this unfold. The first was 19. I was kind of already on my spiritual path, but then it just like unfolded for me even more so, like, oh my God, you got to do psychology. And then I did it. I'm like, oh my God, this is it, man. Like psychology is where it's at for me, you know.
Mhm.
And then I leave grad school and undergrad, and I'm like, okay, I know I need to go to grad school because that's what the vision was saying, but oh, I don't think I'm ready for that. So I took a year off. It was during that year that then I came across The Secret. Then I started practicing it. That's how I got into grad school, because I only applied to one school, one doctoral program within one school, which is very
Wow.
rare to do.
Mhm.
So I'm in grad school. I'm in grad school one day, and I had this kind of connection point that I mentioned earlier of psychology with manifestation and understanding vibration, and using our thoughts, emotions, and actions as the bridge. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But then I have to summarize, what is psychology? Like how would you define that to someone? You know, you can say this is what it is, these are the themes, but what are the practical skills? What are the nuts and bolts there? And so then I went on this 17-year journey to then, in all my free time, like if I wasn't at work or in school, this was my life. And I now joke with my wife and I say, this was my first marriage. Like, you had a first marriage, this was my first marriage. And
Yeah.
so all I did was research, and I would look at textbooks and research articles and over 1,000 forms of therapy that are out there. And not just therapy, but retreats, seminars, self-help books, you name it, any modality of self-growth that you're on this path to try to uh, understand what are the common links, the hidden ingredients that keep being recycled over and over again. And I
Mhm.
feel confidently at this point that I've cracked the code. And
Mhm.
so there are 5 themes, and there are an average of like 3 skills or concepts per theme. And how I'm constructing them is kind of like on a periodic table of elements. I don't know if I have it listed out here that I can show real briefly. I don't think I do. That's okay. So once you understand these concepts, then it's a step-by-step approach. It's a paint by numbers. So if I can learn this skill, and here's all this science that shows that like this is legit to
Mhm.
understand my psychology, now I'm just understanding this concept, but I'm using it now for intentional vibration management, if you will. And once I do that and I make that connection point, that bridge, then I know that I'm working on expanding my consciousness, my vibration. I'm getting closer to being more 5D. So the name of the course is 5D You, so that you can become more 5D. And so
Yeah.
this is kind of phase one of understanding the hidden elements within, because these are the hidden elements within these modalities of change, but they're also hidden elements within ourselves. And
Yeah.
when we can start to unlock these, then life just becomes magical. And I finished the beta testing group. Everyone loved it, which was great feedback that I'm on the right path. And so
Yeah.
now I'm looking at kind of finalizing everything. It's probably going to be rolled out around May. It's kind of what I'm thinking. And this is phase one. And then phase two, once the course kind of grows some legs and I can get some traction from there and get back into my YouTube channel and get the whole kind of swinging things going, that momentum is going to lead to phase two, which is then turning the 5DU course into a larger school platform of 5DU, meaning 5D University. So then what's going to happen there is then I'm going to invite a whole bunch of forward thinking folks like yourself and a lot of others in our tribe and whoever gets magnetized to be able to lead their own courses in there as if you were like an adjunct professor at a university. Because
Okay.
ultimately, what's happening here, whether we're talking about politics like we did at the podcast, or whether we're talking about where we're going as a shift collectively moving forward, we're building what's called a parallel society. That's what's happening right now. And we see it playing out on the world stage. And now we understand it from like an Asara point of view. There's so many different angles we could come at here. But this parallel society is what's next. And we are the builders. You and I, and all the others listening, et cetera, we're all the ambassadors of this shift that's going on. But we need to have the forward thinkers now start building the foundation of what that parallel society is going to look like. And part of that's going to be even with schooling. So right now is we have the lowest amount of people enrolled in colleges ever. I'm not saying this has to necessarily replace college and higher education, but it can be higher dimensional education, if you will. And
Yeah.
so then as you take these courses, then everyone's going to be contributing, and not just through 5DU, but through other universities. There's some other friends of mine that are doing kind of similar things. Rise University is a great example of that. And so other people are, then you can collaborate and network with all those who are doing that. And networking is going to be one of the hallmarks, the themes of what's happening next. And so as we shift to that, then everyone who's a part of this then can have their own course, which will be like, a university course, if you will, through this platform, and it will all be virtual. And then from there, you'll have different themes. So if you want to learn about aliens and dragons, like you can go to that, college, if you will. If you want to learn about the science and how that fits in with, manifesting in 5D, then you can take classes with this kind of theme. And
Mhm.
that's what kind of I see as, the next step. And there's future steps from there, but that's kind of like the 1-2 that's kind of coming up next. So it's very exciting. I'm very excited about this. I'm looking forward to then moving this to an extension of then where we start retreats, we start doing things where we can collaborate more with other people. I'm going to have my own trip to Egypt here probably next spring. So looking forward to that. And you're going to have such a great time in Egypt. And I'm so looking forward to hearing how it goes, because Egypt is a very magical place. It really is. It's there are still lingerings with the energies from way back when. And even though these different spots that you go to have different themes to what the energies are about, some are meant for initiation, some are meant for healing, et cetera, et cetera. But when you go there and you're open energetically, you're awake to that to a certain degree, you can feel it. It's palpable. Like you start kind of shaking. And I remember very poignantly, my guide said when we were leaving, he goes, I've been leading these tours for over 30 years, and it's always my prayer at the end of every tour that I hope that these energies kind of leave a permanent residue positively for you as you head back home and kind of move forward. And for me, I'm kind of half rolling my eyes thinking, yeah, I don't know, we'll see and whatever. And then you get back and it's like, whoa, your whole life goes to a whole nother level
Yeah.
because you've been, I believe, exploring with these energies.
Absolutely. I went and did Bimini with swimming with wild dolphins, and that
Nice.
was a year and a half ago. And I went with Lisa Denning and Heidi. And at the time, I was not aware of how much interacting in those waters and so many dolphins, and again, these were wild dolphins, come right up in your face and they are boring in your eyes,
Mm.
and you can feel they're scanning you. I mean, they let you ride in as well. So I can get into their thoughts, but they're scanning you, and just that unspoken vibrational exchange. It
Yeah,
wasn't until I got back home, just like you
yeah,
said, that I fully was able to understand all of my readings. Everything went boom. I mean, just to a completely different level after
mm,
having that experience, because every time we step into a a higher vibrational state and we allow it to integrate within our field, within our own understanding, we are both remembering,
Yeah,
as it's just remembering, right?
exactly. That's
And
right.
we are also, it's just another door that's opened up into our brain. And
Mhm.
I've had the same, it was interesting how, I've always researched Egypt when I was younger, but from an archaeological standpoint, I really haven't purposely gone deep dives into the deities there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when I go, I'm wanting them to engage in it. I know it's coming from them and authentic, not because I've done extensive reading into it.
Right.
So, but even in just the planning and going there, the deities that have come forward and have already begun to work and they have just come and reintroduced themselves. I
Hmm.
know, we know them.
Yeah.
Um, but the reintroduction, I'm very excited to go. And what my group is going there to do is I'm going there to do toning and activation
Mm.
in every
Okay.
space.
Yeah.
And so we're doing a lot of our locations privately because you're not allowed to tone
Sure. Yeah.
in areas. So we're going after hours and we're going privately to go in and do that. So
How to do it. Yeah.
yep. And again, it's just sparking the memory.
Hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is probably why you've been called to do this, because it's
Mhm.
sparking the memory even after you leave. There's going to be um, like a residue that you leave behind in terms of for others who go, you know. So there's a purpose to it as well.
Absolutely. And that's the reason why we all of us travel and are called to different areas. We may
Hmm.
not even understand on a conscious level why we're called until we get there. Or maybe we never even understand, but it subconsciously
Yeah.
it
You
activated.
got it. You
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
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 Well, Abby, this has been lovely. I'm
I
looking at
know.
the time and I realize I'm late to work, so I've got to jump.
I'm
But
sorry. Thank you so
that's
much.
okay. This has been great. I love it. I'd love to do a part two in the future at some point.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, just enjoying this ride that we're all on together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Alex. And where can anyone follow you if you guys want to get on Alex's wait
Yep.
list, perhaps for his course? Where can they find you and follow you?
So it's 5dyou.com. You can head there and put your name on the wait list. Going to be getting back into my YouTube channel, Dr. Alex Bloom, on Facebook, same name. And yeah, have a lot of content kind of unfolding here very soon. So
That's
lots of good
amazing.
things coming.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much for coming on. And everybody else, if you want to follow for more travels, I have a lot more coming up. AbbyLynn.co. All the information will be there. All right. Thanks so much. Thanks, Alex. All right.
All
Bye.
right, you got it.